I just got out of 28 years later and ooh boy, was that a lot of meat. In what feels like a rare case in modern Hollywood, even though this is an existing IP, it's not a retread, it's not a remake pretending to be a sequel. No, it's actually its own thing that was clearly made with a lot of passion and effort. But do I think this own thing is worthy of the series it's in? 12-year-old me would kill me for saying this, but no. And I already know I'm gonna have people saying the classic condescending, "Oh, it's a great dramatic story, you just don't get it." Like they do when you dare criticize the kinds of horror movies that people still pretend are good, like The Babadook or The Witch. No, I get it. I get that it sucks. If you're like me and you spent God knows how much of your life playing zombie games, watching zombie movies, reading zombie comics, or running around your backyard making terrible found footage zombie home movies, you've probably eagerly been waiting for a sequel in the 28 Days Later series since 28 weeks later. I think skipping 28 months later should be considered a hate crime, but I digress. 28 years later is here, and the first thing my friend and I said to each other after it was over was, "What did we just watch?" But Kingerd, the internet is saying it's a beautifully shot film with expert cinematography and stellar actor performances. Well, the internet's right about that part. Returning from the original 28 Days Later, director Danny Boyle and cinematographer Anthony Dodd Mantle combined beautiful landscape shots with shots reminiscent of the cinematography of the original, and not in a way that's jarring at all. You may not even notice if you haven't seen 28 Days Later recently. There were some weird choices made early in the action sequences, like freeze frames and quick cuts in the middle of arrows piercing infected, for example, but everything still looks good. The cast gave it their all, no complaints there, so you win there too, internet. But what the internet is also saying is that 28 Years Later is weird, tonally inconsistent, and stands out from the first two films in a good way. No. This film is weird, it is tonally inconsistent, and it does stand out from the other two movies. But I do not even remotely mean that in a good way. It's going to be difficult for me to share my criticisms of this film without getting into spoiler territory, so if you don't want to be spoiled, take a hike, come back when it's fresh on your mind, see if you agree with what I say. So why did I leave this movie asking myself, why did I prefer 28 Weeks Later more than this one? Banger of an intro, but let's be real, the rest of the movie's pretty generic zombie flick. Let's get into it. To kick us off with a bang, I think this movie betrays the world that it's set in. The infected in the 28 Days series have the rage virus.
Infected with what?
Rage.
Giving its victims an unbridled, irrational rage. Sort of like me toward this movie. They're not undead zombies in search of brains or food or booty. They're emotionally, psychologically broken, still living people with a disease that makes them angrily attack anything that moves.
We are human, but we are infected with 100% rage.
They punched, beat, gouged out eyes. They weren't killing to eat, they were killing to kill.
It's a primate-based virus, and it leads to permanent, appalling state of aggression.
Feel this incredible rage which blots out any other feeling at all. It's just about complete destruction.
Imagine yourself in your worst moment of road rage and multiply it by 1,000,000, and that's what these people are like.
And the rage is dominating you. That's the main idea about the infection.
Yes, we saw plenty of bites happen, but those played out more like an expression of rage, not them hunting people for food. 28 Years Later tosses that out the window because now we have basically I Am Legend Dark Seekers that can walk around in the day.
They need to drink, they need to eat.
They are essentially herd animals who hunt in packs and eat meat.
They behave like pack animals, they follow leaders, they coordinate attacks on deer and people, they forage for food like slurping up wormies, they drink water, and they're implied to potentially even be mating? I mean, if you saw what I saw in this movie, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway. I mean, at one point you see an infected chasing somebody, pass by them to grab the fish that they were cooking and take a bite out of that instead. And in another instance, there's a pregnant infected lady whose entire childbirth is shown uncut on screen for some reason, and she's shown completely dropping her aggro to hold hands with a human that's comforting her during the childbirth.
Rage, which blots out any other feeling at all.
Crown or no crown, that chick should have been mitts up ready to scrap the whole time. The rage virus made the series Infected unique from other zombie media. Halfway through the movie, I was waiting for some kind of reveal that they weren't actually infected. They were just feral people who had been adapting to the wilderness all this time. This twist would perfectly explain why the baby delivered, again, in full view, didn't come out infected, nor did it get infected during the birth. Hold on, you mean to tell me a single drop of blood in this dude's eye got him infected in seconds, and this kiss got this dude beating his wife's skull in seconds, but a baby being in the womb of an infected person and all of the blood involved in being born did not infect this baby nor the people helping deliver it with their bare hands? Yeah, okay. And another thing, there's some expository text at the beginning of the movie that kind of just explains, like, there was an outbreak and it was pushed to this area. It sets up where we're at in the story. It conveniently leaves out that there were actually 2 outbreaks. All it says is there was an outbreak. Why might that be? Do you remember what stopped the first outbreak from going any further at the end of 28 days later?
How'd that get in there?
That's right, starvation, because the infected were not intelligent nor coordinated enough to hunt in packs. And don't come at me with the, it's been 28 years, it would make sense for them to evolve.
Nature finds a way. However ugly it might be, or however beautiful, it is evolving all the time.
Dog, everything in this movie is written fiction. Any line of it can be changed with the stroke of a pen. If they wanted to be consistent with what made the rage virus distinct, they could have. But they chose not to do that. They chose to go down the beaten to death path of, the zombies are getting smarter. They should have just kept it as it was, but even that didn't enrage me as much as the next criticisms on my list. In many ways that I will name in this video, this movie commits 2 cardinal sins. Wasting the audience's time, and not trusting the audience not to be low IQ TikTok brain morons. For example, when we first see the gate to the community, there's several crosses lined up like headstones. If left alone, this would have been a nice visual detail on the set telling us, hey, some of the scavengers who go out there, sometimes they don't come back. I commended that detail in my head. I thought it was neat. Then I kid you not, like clockwork, the lady talking says something to the effect of, be careful out there, you may not make it back, and she gestures over and the camera pans over to the crosses like, hey, you idiots get it? People die out there.
Oh, no.
God. And in another instance, when we're getting shots of the town to kind of just establish what all's going on there, we see a storage area that's low on supplies. It wasn't enough for us to see that the storage was low on supplies. They literally write it out with a sign that says, we're low on supplies. What happened to visual storytelling, like seeing all the bags of potato chips still on the aisles in a quiet place? There's the principle of show, don't tell, but this movie likes to show and tell, and it does it a lot. Give the audience a little bit of credit, give us something to chew on, to discuss, to notice upon rewatches. We're not all completely hopeless, I promise you. The ending is an exception, but Ivan Ooze is going to join us to touch on that later. But now to explain to you why I think 28 years later wastes the audience time, first I need you to know, I thought the first act of this movie was phenomenal. We get introduced to the town, we see how it's segregated from the mainland, everyone in this town has a job to do, and the community starts training kids how to kill infected. The implications of effectively grooming these kids to be killers at such a young age, it becomes all the more disturbing when scenes are intercut with flashes of medieval archers defending their castle from invaders, and that creepy audio that was in the trailer from Taylor Holmes' reading of the Kipling poem Boots, published in 1903. Side note, the flashes of soldier imagery, they do it too much. Again, the movie thinks we're stupid. It's not enough to just show us the kids acting like soldiers. To get the analogy, we have to have footage of that intercut with footage of soldiers so that we can put the pieces together. It's ridiculous. It doesn't break the movie, but it's jarring and ridiculous. We're getting to what does break the movie though, don't worry. Anywho, our protagonist, Spike, and his father, Jamie, are going on Spike's first excursion away from the town. The sole purpose of the trip being to make Spike kill a couple of infected, to prepare him for no doubt having to leave the town more often as he gets older. Now, this setup makes you think we've just stumbled onto a trip gone wrong story that'll take the entire film to wrap up, doesn't it? We get the father-son trip, Spike's forced to put down some infected, the return home does indeed go wrong, and they end up having to stay the night and avoid a pack of infected before they can even get back to town. Jamie's demeanor completely changing from supportive dad to, oh my god, we've got to get out of here, when he realizes there's an alpha nearby, the tense standoff in a rundown house, and the frantic sprint across the land bridge all make for what honestly would have been a superb short film sequel if it had just ended right there. Or maybe extend this to the whole movie. But it doesn't do that. Both Jamie and Spike return home safely at the end of the first act, and when they do, it marks pretty much the moment my enjoyment of this film stopped. That's because almost everything the first act spends its whole runtime setting up gets completely tossed out the window for a plot pivot that does actually take up the rest of the film. Remember that sick mom of Spike's you saw once or twice? Yeah, well guess what? This entire movie's an escort mission to find a supposed doctor for her, the doctor that Jamie warned Spike never to go looking for because he saw him gathering bodies once. He must be a psycho, don't go there. Then we get to that doctor anyway, and what was he piling the bodies for? What satisfying payoff will we receive when we meet him? None. Turns out he's not a bad guy at all, or even an interesting guy. He's just a chill dude who likes to collect bones and name infected after biblical figures. Then he diagnoses Spike's mom with untreatable brain cancer, so to teach Spike a lesson about death being inescapable and peaceful deaths being preferred, he mercy kills his mom, then makes him hold her skull? What's happening here?
There are many kinds of death.
What was the point of the trip or making us follow this mother-son for the whole movie? Are we supposed to be interested in Spike's character arc from kid who's scared to kill infected to kid who's still scared to kill infected but just doesn't have a mom now? And honestly, I could have swallowed a subpar character arc being this film's crux if it hadn't dangled a much better plotline at us from the very beginning. You don't spend the whole first act visually comparing the kids of the town to soldiers and indoctrinated wartime children, then showing us the strained relationship between a father and son just to have the movie shift to abandoning both the town and the father until the end of the movie. No, you need to have Spike be forced by the town to do something for the good of the town like a good little soldier. Maybe he finds out his town's scavenger parties, including his dad, aren't just scavengers. They actually raid and kill nearby survivors for the good of the community. And you make Spike have to grapple with how he's been raised versus what's right. You don't tell us a story about Jamie seeing Dr. Kelson, the alleged psycho, burning bodies in the woods all those years ago, then have Kelson turn out to be a nothing character who just likes stacking bones and chilling. You make a late movie reveal that the bodies Kelson was burning were the rest of his community that Jamie's raiding party had killed, and he was the last survivor that's sworn revenge on them if they ever come back. The fire isn't just Kelson burning bodies for funsies, it's a beacon to make sure they always know where to find him because now he's Rambo, he wants his rematch, but nobody wants to go over there because he's a master of guerrilla warfare. So instead, they just tell the young bloods he's crazy, stay away from that area. Sure, you'd have to do some late story writing to make sure it doesn't end up too Avatar-y or Dances with Wolves-y, but do you see my criticism here? Why toss what your movie spent all this time establishing and establishing well? Give us some conflict with these things you've established. And Jamie, the complex father figure that wants the best for his son so much that he's willing to lie to him to make him feel better or hype him up as brave to the rest of the town even when he doesn't deserve it. But then on the flip side, he also fills a James Sunderland-like role of a guy who so he acts out in ways that disgust his son when he finds out. Yeah, he's just gone. For the whole movie. I mean, the mom's actress Jodie Comer did outstanding. It's not a slight against her. It's just I can't justify trading the rising tension brought by the father's presence for getting rid of him so we can have more of mom staring off at the horizon or dream sequences as a result of her deteriorating mental state. What are you doing with the dad character, movie? Are you holding him out to the sequel or something? And then we have the Swedish soldier character, I think Eric was his name. He and his squad run a patrol out in the water before their boat capsized. They all got stuck in the quarantine zone, and everyone but him, a squad of mercenaries packing automatic weaponry, were inexplicably picked off by like less than 10 crazy naked people with bare hands. Eric's only two purposes narratively that I can think of was one, show us that other countries help patrol the quarantine zone, and two, show us what Dr. Kelson does with dead people's bones. Eric's skull ends up being another one to add to Kelson's pile after Long Schlong Samson rips it from his shoulders. Well, we already know that other countries patrol the quarantine zone, that was pointed out to us earlier, and we see exactly what Kelson does to Fresh Bones because he does it to Spike's mom later. So aside from a couple comedic moments and a couple of extra kills, I guess, Eric's character served no real purpose to the overall narrative. If you removed him and the gas station rescue completely, the movie would be unchanged. Nothing would play out any differently than it did. To sum up this whole section, I think the movie had a good thing going for its first act, then maddeningly decided to switch gears for some reason. It's like it went out of its way to waste the audience's time. Act 1 should have stretched to the full film, or the film should have started with Act 2. They do not tell a cohesive story when told together. Which brings us to the last thing I'll mention, and that is the ending.
What's that smell?
It ends with Spike running from some infected, and a group of people wearing like gold bling and bright colored tracksuits pop out of nowhere. They ask Spike's permission to let them kill the infected that are closing in on him. Spike says yes. Then these wacky, zany Jimmy Savile rejects start, I kid you not, Power Ranger flipping and taking out infected to an upbeat soundtrack, clearly slaughtering them with their weapons for fun. In that exception of showing and not telling that I mentioned earlier, the leader, who goes by Jimmy for some crazy reason, has a necklace that implies to us he's the same kid from the intro that was watching Teletubbies with the other kids, you know, before they got slaughtered 10 seconds into the movie, and whose dad was the priest who thought the impending army of psycho killers were actually sent by God, you know, like every religious figure in every horror movie ever. It is unique and different that these seem to be adults in an apocalyptic setting that were heavily influenced by the media they consumed as children, but that doesn't make this good. Good thing the outbreak started before these people got internet, and they'd have to read the third sentence on Jimmy Savile's Wikipedia page. I understand the original had some tonal shifts too, but dog, those worked as a natural progression of the story from isolation and despair to family and hope back to despair. Each tone shift was earned by the scenes preceding it. Throwing in the Star Wars Rainbow Bike Crew out of nowhere right after what's supposed to be the heavy death of Spike's mom, then Jamie crying out to the void when he realizes Spike's not coming back to the town. This isn't earned, it's tonal whiplash played for shock value, and visually it would be more in place in a movie like Zombieland, not a 28 Days movie. If it's supposed to be sequel bait, like who are these people? Frankly, I don't care. I do not feel this movie fits with the rest of the series, and I do not care where the story goes from here. Buried in the first act of 28 Years Later, there's a good sequel to 28 Days Later that explores what growing up in a town quarantined with hordes of infected might look like. As for the rest of the movie, I can commend them for not wanting to retread old ground, but honestly, I think that would have been better than the misguided, overly artsy, lore-contradicting, disjointed sore thumb of a series entry that we got. For now, I think I'll just stick to the first two because I don't know what 28 Years Later is, but it is not a sequel to these movies. And that is why I'm still asking myself, what did I just watch? I've never done a movie video before, so I don't have another one to recommend to you, but if you guys liked this and you want to see me delve outside of video games more frequently, let me know. Or if you hated it, let me know that too. I was actually planning on doing movie videos when I first started this channel, I just never got around to it till now. As always, thanks for watching. Carry on, you kings.